All right, so we're going to work a little bit on the obstacles here. And so we should have those in our art, and we should have I think it's under props here. There, we've got a crate, and there's more than one here. I'm just going to bring one in. So I'll just drag it in. And actually the size is pretty good there. If you needed to change it, obviously, you could change the size here, right, with the scale, but that looks pretty decent. Now, just to get this to actually work, and I'm in play mode. Let's make sure I'm off play mode and do that again. There we go. Good, so just roughly somewhere where we can hit it. There we go. So once I've got that in, obviously it's just a sprite at the moment, just a graphic. We don't have anything to do with physics. So let's add two things, and hopefully you know what we're going to add. We're going to add a rigid body, so RB2D, right? And I don't think we have to change anything there. And the second thing, we need to have it some sort of collider. So I'll just go for the box collider 2D and just double check. And it looks like it was pretty good. Yeah, there's the green line around it, so it's done it properly. Okay, now that should really be all that we need to do in terms of getting it to work. So what I'll do here though is there's no point to call that crate 1. We'll just call that crate. And then maybe I'll duplicate a few. So Control D will duplicate, and I'll just drag that up just so we have a little bit of a tower here. And maybe I'll do another one, Control D. We'll put 4 here. And if there's a little gap in between, that's not too big of a deal. It should all fall down. So I've got some gaps there. When I hit play, if everything's working properly, they should sort of go on top of each other. There we go. And then I can take my bird and aim it and fire at it. There we go. Okay, so it looks like things are working, and then good, then it reset. So far, so good. Now, what we're going to do is sort of give us a little bit of an indication. We want to create sort of a line renderer so that we can kind of aim things and get our bird sort of give us a little bit more guidance. Now, the idea for this line renderer is that when we pull back, we want to sort of create a line between the bird and this sort of the starting position, whatever the starting position is here. So what we're going to do is, let's go back to red bird here, and we're going to add a component. And we're going to add a line renderer. There it is. So I'm going to add this line renderer. And there's a few little things we're going to mess around with. Let me just sort of close this up too. So that brings this up. Let me see here. There's a few things. So the idea, the positions, basically we've got sort of a start and an ending position. So we've got these two positions. At the moment, they're sort of 0, 0, 0. And there's a 1 there. We'll modify this in the code in a minute. What we also need to do, we can leave all these. The width of this, again, we're going to put a texture on it, so we'll be okay. There is a color. They're just trying to find here the material. There's materials. It's hiding on me. At the moment, there's none. We're just going to put in the default sprite material. So sprite's default. That's the one I want. Okay. Now, don't worry too much about this, but I will show you something here. So if I take off, let's see here. Let me just sort of think. On the X. So from one to the other, if I sort of increase one of these numbers here. There we are. You can kind of see it shooting out from there. Now, the 001 would be the initial position, and then we're just sort of, bringing this out to sort of connect it to the other one. Okay, we're going to use that. We're going to work on that in a second here. But just so you can sort of see that this is the array that's coming up. Now, again, the line is too thick. If we wanted to reduce the thickness of the line, we can just with sort of here, we can pull that down. So if I pull this out again, you'll notice right away that's sort of a thinner line. I would leave it like that. Like I said, we're going to add a texture to that with arrows to make it look a little bit better. But that's sort of the general idea. Now, like I was saying, we've got an array here. We've got two values, so the index 0 and the index 1. We're going to set those two values. Basically, we're going to set index 0 to the initial position, and we'll set index 1 to wherever the bird is at that moment. So it'll sort of be dynamic. So let's go back to our code. and we're still in our bird renderer here. I'm going to come up here and create a variable that's going to hold on to the line renderer. So let's make a line renderer, and I'll call it, I don't know, line ren. Sounds good. And we'll do that get component right here too. So I'm going to, well, I'll just write it out. So what did I call that? I called line ren. Actually, I'm going to call it line ren. I think that's better than linren, line ren. And we'll do the get component. And we will grab the line renderer. Okay. So once we've grabbed the line renderer, then we can do a few things to it. So we're going to set its position. So again, if we go back to Unity here, these here are the positions. So we can set the position based on the index value. So again, back here, and I think we'll do that in the update. So I'll do it right at the top of the update here. Give myself a little bit of room. So I've got that line ren. So line ren dot set position. There it is. And this sort of takes two pieces of information. We need to know which index we are editing. So here you can see int index. So that's what I put in first. And then we need a vector3, the position. So that position here would be what we defined before as the initial position. Initial position. There we go. So that's the first point. Now the second point, so again, line ren dot set position. I guess I could have copied that, but that's okay. Now we're going to take that second point, so that's index position 1, and then we're just going to put to the transform dot position. So that's the location of the bird. Okay. So now if we go back, I'll just save that here, we should have a more dynamic line rather than just being fixed like we had it here. Okay, so hopefully that will, I don't know if I need to, actually when I hit play here, I mean I might as well set this back to 0 just so we don't have this big huge line. But when I hit play here, now I shouldn't see anything at the moment because the transform dot position of the bird and the initial position are identical. But as soon as I pull it back, there it is. There's the line. And so no matter where I pull it, well, okay, I went past the reset there. But as I pull this, right, we can see that line. Now, there's a little bit of an issue when I let go. Okay, the line continues. So obviously there's something, problematic about that. So we'll fix that up in the code as well. And obviously, in terms of a white line, we want to be able to do something different there. Okay, so let's just turn that off there. So what we'll first do is get the line renderer to appear and disappear here. So I'm going to go back to the code, and what we'll do is when we click, so where is it here? So on mouse down, I think, or mouse, I'm just trying to think here, on mouse drag, either way, we'll make it enabled. So I think on mouse down is probably good. And so what we can do is the line renderer dot enabled, we'll set that to true. And then when we release, so on the mouse up, we will set line ren dot enabled to false. So that should be able to get it to sort of turn on and off. Let's just check that out. And hopefully that works. So what we're only hoping to see is that arrow when we actually are moving the bird. So there it is. So that's working. And then when I let go, yeah, it disappears. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. So we've got it enabled in terms of appearing and then disappearing when the bird obviously has sort of, been launched, right? So that looks pretty good. Now we want to get rid of that sort of line, right? So we're going to create our own sort of material here. So this isn't where I'm the best, so it might take me a couple little tries here, so just bear with me. I do have it in the UI. I do have a white arrow. So what we're going to do is create a new material. I don't really have a materials folder here. Oops, I'm just going to close this up. So maybe I'll just create because these are all, there's no materials there. So let me just create a new folder here. while we're at it, materials. And in there, we'll create this new material. So create material, whoops, that was interesting. Delete. Okay, try this again. So create, hopefully I didn't mess something up here. Didn't mess anything up, good, just took a minute there. Okay, so create, and we want a material, which I always have trouble finding, there it is. And so this material here, we should give it a name, and this will be, we'll just call our arrow material. And what's kind of interesting is that you can actually drag in to the albedo, not only just the color. I've always thought, oh, I just put the color, but you can drag in a material as well. So if, that art, sort of that texture, I guess I should say. So under the UI, I'm going to drag that into here. And so then that's got the material there. Now what we want to do is a couple little things. Under this shader, instead of standard, I am going to go to, let me just check here, unlit, and unlit transparent. Okay, so the unlit transparent, that should do that there from shader. Okay, so that's looking good for the material. And then I think I have to go back to this guy as well here. And yes, so on this material, to get it to repeat, there is a wrap mode, and we take wrap mode and we put it to repeat. So that should get us to have multiple lines there. So wrap, repeat, change 0, 1. What else had I done here? I think we might be okay. I'm just trying to see where else we might have to change. Okay, so let's go and see if this will work for our basically get it to show up here. So let me go back to our line renderer. So that was on our red bird. Okay, apply. Oh, I didn't apply that there, so that's the thing, apply. Okay, so go back to the line renderer. Now where we had put the material before with the sprite default, we'll actually add, not that one, our materials here. Our arrow. So I'm going to put that on there. Now let's just see what we've got here. So if I hit play. Okay, now it's not, it's kind of working. Now one thing is it's going the wrong way, which we can fix very quickly. The other thing is not repeating yet as well. So we need to do one other change there. Now to get it to go the right way, what I just did was I put these backwards. So here we are. So this line rend, the set position, 0 initial position, and the transfer, we want it to go in the opposite direction. So the easiest thing to do is just swap the index value. So if I swap the index value, the order doesn't matter here, but just to be a completest sake, let's put that there. Okay, so we just had them in the wrong order. Now the other problem, of course, is that it's not quite right in terms of, let's just make sure the direction's right. It's not repeating, it's just sort of stretching there. So we'll just have to figure that out as well. So just give me a second there. All right, I figured out the problem here. So just make sure that on your UI, your white arrow here, that the mesh type is set to from tight to full rect. That just makes sure it takes up the full size of it. And then I think I had already set this to repeat. And if you have to, apply that there. And the second thing is, and this is probably the bigger part, on the Redbird, on the line renderer. So at the moment we've got it all stretched out. I didn't change the texture mode here from stretch to tile. And so then that will tile it out. Now what I did there was just, I've changed this number so that I could see it all. So I'll change that back. But anyways, and then you can play around with the width. Somewhere there we go. So depending on how big you want that. So probably something about that size. Okay. If you wanted them further apart, probably you would just make your tile, if you were going to create this, just have I guess in the UI here, have it even wider. I think this was 128 by 64. So I mean, you can go 256, right? And then that would sort of double the space in between there. Good. That's enough for this video because we're going to run out of time here.